You're listening to the Patriot Nation podcast, presented by Pat's Pulpit.
All right, welcome back to the Patriot Nation podcast. We're recording a little bit early here on a Wednesday, but we figured we had to get this out. Tom Brady has once again retired from the NFL. It does seem, though, Matt, that this one's got some finality to it. Last time, it didn't really seem like he was actually going to do it. This time, looks like he's going out mostly on his own terms, but it's his decision coming from him, I think.
Yeah, I think you can tell. I mean, first of all, I don't think you make jokes about the fact that this is your second retirement. If there's even a hint of you coming back, like all of those jokes suddenly aren't funny anymore and don't seem sincere at all if he comes back at this point.
Right.
So it's that, and the fact that he called. Did he call them? Did he go in at 6 this morning to give his retirement? The video was on a beach. All of this has the vibe of somebody he stayed overnight at the beach and watched the sunset and watched the sunrise and made his decision.
Yeah,
but
yeah, kind of.
You can kind of hear his voice crack a little bit given his announcement, and that I feel like that's how you know it's real. This is the most authentic version of Brady I feel like we've seen in a very long time.
Yeah, it's this season took a real toll on him. It looks like they said he lost 15 pounds during the season. And we can speculate as to why he did it, or what happened with his family and stuff. And I don't think this is the time or place for that. To be honest with you, I don't think it's any of our business. But I do think that it was obvious that this weighed on him. Jeff Darlington came out and said that he had kind of said to people at Tampa behind the scenes that he was either coming back to Tampa or he wasn't coming back at all. And I think this Tampa by the end was just a dumpster fire. And he was just like, this is ridiculous. And if I come back next year, it's going to be more of the same. And,
it would be worse. They're in very much the same cap situation the Patriots were in when he left New England.
Right.
And you can restructure stuff, but there's really, other than coaching and the draft, there is no way to make that team better next year than it is this year. And it's hard to do for both of those. So you put it all together, it wouldn't have been a good spot for him to come back.
Right.
And I don't blame him for not wanting to, uproot things and go play somewhere else, especially, we always heard about Brady would say he's going to play till he sucks. He didn't suck this year, but you could tell his heart, I don't think, was quite as in it. Right. He looked very human in the same way he did in 2019 in New England, except, it's been more years here and more toll on the body, and he's won another Super Bowl, and his life has changed, and changes your decision.
And as Dark Blue Gold says, he did hit 45, right? That he always said he was going to play till he was 45. He hit it. And he proved kind of everyone wrong. I still think, my dad was saying, and I agree with him, should have retired after the Super Bowl for Tampa, rode out on the sunset on that one. And even if he hadn't, he really should have retired last year. He really should have. You talk about having just an outrageous season. He was incredible in 2021. Should have won the MVP. Didn't, but should have won the MVP. And then kind of had that last gasp, right? In the was it the championship game? No, it was the NFC divisional round. Or was it the championship?
Against the Rams?
Against the Rams. Divisional,
it was
right?
Divisional.
Okay,
yeah.
So had that crazy comeback against the Rams, only for the defense to blow it at the end. But again, it was a vintage Brady performance with the crazy comeback, the unbelievable second half by Brady. He played incredible. And you can kind of walk off to the sunset and look at it like, hey, I did the best I could. And this year, like you say, not that anything's tarnished, because it's not. But this year, it's kind of like, man, to see him play this year and look mortal and look like, he frankly wasn't very good in some games. And not that all that had to do with him, but it was kind of sad to see that happen.
Yeah, and it's sad. It might be sad, but at the same time, I think it is. That's Tom Brady.
Yeah.
Like, I know we say, we want to see him go out on top, but does that like we all know exactly who Tom Brady is. We spent so many years watching him. Does anybody think that he was going to go out in a way that other than this? If he won a Super Bowl, he still knows he can do it. And if he knows he can do it, there wasn't a world where he wasn't going to come back.
It's true.
Like he is the ultimate competitor. He was never going to hang it up and knowing that he still had something more to give. And I think this year was kind of just probably too physically painful. I know there's been a lot made of the fact in that Dallas game, he just looked like he didn't want to take hits anymore. I don't blame the dude. I'm 24 and I don't want to get hit by those guys. I can't imagine doing that at 45 years old.
Right. Yeah.
So I think this is him giving it everything he's got. I think that's what happens with the greats too. Like this isn't Joe Montana went to another team and kind of fizzled out his last couple years to a certain degree. And I don't know, like you go around sport like Michael Jordan and all these guys, the greats never retire on top because they get to being on top. You have to have such a crazy commitment to winning that you can't give that up without kind of getting broken a little bit.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I agree. And look, and my dad just texted me. He said he won 3 games by himself this year, which he did. And again,
yeah,
he carried
was still good this year.
Right. and it's hard because that team sucked this year. And, and you're right. It's not going to get any better next year. Right. But that's one of those, it's tough, man. It's really tough, but you're right. You are right though, because you feel like if he felt like he still had it and could theoretically win a championship, he was coming back. And I think he looks at the writing on the wall and says, yeah, Tampa's not pulling it off. Theoretically, San Francisco could have been a landing spot for him. They are primed. I mean, Brock Purdy played well, but he's Brock Purdy. Say whatever you want to say. He's Brock Purdy. I'm sorry. He's Brock Purdy. He was a 7th round draft pick. He's Mr. Irrelevant for a reason, right?
Yeah, he could be good, but you would always pick Tom Brady over him.
Correct. And so, and listen, if Purdy doesn't get hurt in that Eagles game, I mean, they probably still lose anyways, but I don't know. You never know. He couldn't throw the ball. So we have no idea what would have happened. So, it is interesting to kind of see, and that could be a spot, but maybe he didn't want to go there. Maybe San Fran said, hey, look, we're not interested, Tom. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they got a lot of assets in Trey Lance, and they got a lot of wins out of Brock Purdy. And I understand not wanting to rock that boat before next season. You got 2 options that you think you already like.
Right.
I don't know why you necessarily add a third who Brady's 45 years old. He might not be better than either of them next year if he falls off a cliff. And then, all right, well, now we made the other 2 guys mad. And we got this guy for 1 year that isn't very good. It's totally reasonable for San Francisco.
Right. I mean, we've been talking about this cliff for what, 10 years? It hasn't come yet.
There was no cliff. There was just a kind of gentle rolling hill down to the ocean.
Yeah. I mean, and that's really what it comes down to, right? Is that it never was a cliff. It never happened. And again, we can point to
Max Kellerman must be so mad right now.
Oh my goodness. Well, and how about ESPN? Francesa's on, and he's like, he's not the greatest regular season quarterback of all time, and he's not the greatest Super Bowl quarterback of all time. And so, I don't know if I would choose him to win 1 game. I was like, dude, shut up. If I had to win 1 game, I would choose Joe Montana. You would, unless, of course, you were playing the NFC Championship game, and then you probably wouldn't. Oh, maybe you were playing just the first round of the playoffs. Then maybe you wouldn't choose him either, since he had a bunch of one and dones. It's interesting that we punish Brady, and we're doing the same thing to LeBron, by the way, but that's neither here nor there because I still think Jordan's better. But we punish Brady for making the Super Bowl too many times. Tom, you really shouldn't have made the Super Bowl 10 times. If you only made the Super Bowl 4 times and you'd won all 4 of those, you'd be better than making the Super Bowl 10 times and only winning 7 of them.
Well, and I think that's where most people kind of see through those arguments at this point anyway. Those arguments get made for a certain demographic that likes to argue about that stuff and eats it up. And that's just I'm at a point now I'm just I love watching Tom Brady. He's the most entertaining quarterback I've ever seen with the way he was able to pull things out. He's got more wins than anybody else. It's fantastic. He has records. I don't really care what anybody else says because we all watched him and we all know how good he was. And if you didn't sit down and watch him every single Sunday, you don't get to weigh in on this one. You didn't. You weren't there for it the way we were.
I agree. I agree. By the way, Dark Blue Gold
what
is right. Violet did come down the stairs and go
I was
back up.
laughing at that.
I don't know what she was doing, but she did come downstairs and then go back up. So, but anyways, the one stat, here's the only stat that matters to me. The only stat that matters is that in the it's the most ridiculous. Daddy's recording the sports, he says. He is. Daddy's recording the sports. Be quiet. But it's one of those things for me, the best stat of all time, and the only stat, the stat that will never, ever, ever be touched, is that Tom Brady has 10 lead changing drives in the fourth quarter or overtime of the Super Bowl. 10.
Yeah.
Okay. So, and that's when I say lead changing drives, that means to either tie the game or take the lead in the fourth quarter or overtime. Of course, you got to include the overtime Falcons game, but in the fourth quarter or overtime of the Super Bowl, he has 10. Second on the list is a tie for second.
Well, is that 10? I'm trying to do the math here. That's not one? Is that one in every Super Bowl?
No, it's not one in every Super Bowl because you get the 2 in the Falcons game.
Yeah,
because one to tie the game, one to take the lead. You didn't have one in 2011. You had one in 07.
Oh, it happened in the what do you call it? The very first drive of the second half in 2011.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. So you didn't have one in 11. You had one in 07. You had one in 01. You had one in 03.
And I think they took the lead for the last time. I think it was tied going into the fourth.
Yes. Yep.
04.
In 04, they had one as well. Then 07, so that's 4. And then I think it's one in every Super Bowl.
It's one for every game, minus 11, and plus an extra one for the Falcons one.
Minus 11 plus an extra one for the Falcons game. Yep, that's correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so
yeah.
So anyway, so it's 10. Second on the list is a tie for second with 3. Tie for second with 3. Do you know who the 2 quarterbacks that have 3 are?
Guessing one of them is Montana.
Montana has.
You have 2.
1.
Is it just the 1? Okay.
1.
Well, because a couple of those Super Bowls were blowouts.
That's the thing. That's why everyone talks about Montana. No, Montana's got the drive. One drive.
We're talking 3.
3.
Does Ben Roethlisberger have 3?
Nope.
He has 2.
Yep.
How old school are we talking here?
New school, not Elway either. Nope.
They're both of them that have 3 are new.
Both of them that have 3 are new. One of them is recently retired. One of them recently made the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Peyton didn't do it, right?
Nope.
No, he doesn't have 1, does he?
I don't think he has 1. Nope.
No. Well, let me think. Is Joe
Joe
Flacco?
Although
What?
I have the right family.
Eli?
Eli's got 3.
Did he have 2 in one of those games?
Yep.
Wow.
Yep.
Was it 42 that he had 2?
I'm trying to remember correctly. I think it was 42 that he had 2 of them, and he obviously had 1 in 46.
Oh yeah, it was. I was looking at the line earlier. Yeah, because he had a drive at the start, and they passed, retook that game was. If I'm remembering correctly, was it like 7-3 going into the fourth quarter?
I think so. Yeah, because the final score was 17-14.
Insanely low scoring game. So Eli's one of them. Yeah, because he had the 2 in the one game. That got me.
Yep.
So the other one just got inducted into the Hall of Fame.
I don't know if it was this past year, but it was in the past few years. Got inducted to the Hall of Fame. Chat's got it.
I see the Kurt Warner one. That's a good one because he did it in 01. He did it. Did he do it twice in 99? Oh no, he did it once in 99, once in 08.
That's right. Did it once in 08 as well. Yep.
Yeah, the 99 Super Bowl Rams Titans.
Incredible.
Everybody talks about the 1 yard short play.
Yeah.
And the throw he has, it was a 1 yard, 80-yard touchdown drive. One play, 80-yard touchdown drive. For the game winner. That's incredible. That's a play that should get talked about. Who did he throw that to? Was that Isaac Bruce?
I think it was Holt, but it might have been Bruce.
It definitely wasn't Holt. It was
so it might have been. So then it was Isaac Bruce. I don't think it was Hakeem.
Yeah, I don't think it was either. But yeah, that's one of the crazy there's like the Super Bowl plays nobody talks about that everybody talks about, like the curse catch and the Julio Jones catch. We've talked about how little those are talked about so much
Right.
that they're talked about a lot now, but that's a play nobody talks about in that game. That's crazy.
It was Isaac Bruce. You're right. 73-yard pass from Warner. Oh, he tore his
Game winner.
hamstring on it. Look at this. Tore his hamstring. Look
Wow.
at pulling it back. Isaac Bruce tore his hamstring on the play.
Love that. I appreciate the trivia help there in the chat.
So yeah, how about that?
Yeah.
So, and look at this. Before 51 and 53, Kurt Warner was 1, 2, and 3 in Super Bowl single game passing yards. That's incredible.
I do know that every season that he started every game, his team went to the Super Bowl.
That's fairly impressive.
Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, Kurt Warner, he turns out he's pretty good at this whole thing.
Yeah. And so, but my point here, right, is that Kurt Warner and Eli Manning, of course, I mean, listen, Eli's got two
clutch quarterbacks, yeah.
Yes. And Kurt Warner's got a championship as well. Right. Could have had a second. Of course, Roethlisberger, had a great drive at the end. But, they have three each. And Brady has 10.
Yeah.
10.
And I can get, and the other thing that's part of that is that I believe that at some point in the fourth quarter of every Super Bowl that Tom Brady played in, he left the field in the fourth quarter with a lead.
Yes, that's correct. Yep.
Wait, did he have a come from behind drive against the Chiefs? That game was a blowout, so there must have been 2 in another one. I always forget about that.
What do you mean?
His Super Bowl they won against the Chiefs. We were talking about the 10 game-winning drives.
They didn't win a Super Bowl against the Chiefs, sir. Chiefs are in the AFC.
When Brady was with the Bucs.
Oh, he's talking about the Bucs. I got you, idiot. Hello. No, no. I think he had 2 in another game. It was.
It was.
Shoot. What
I know it's 38. It's right. 38 because the Panthers went up 22-21 and he scored. Yeah.
Yep. Right. So that was right. So he got 2 in that game, 2 in the other game, and then none in because I knew there was another game that he didn't have one in. So none in last year in 2020.
Yeah.
2020. Yep. So, but you think about how insane that is and how he's able to take his game to the next level in those biggest moments. And, and again, Hitchhiker's probably saying, he had six game-winning drives in the Super Bowl. Like 6. That's outrageous to think about that.
He had, in the regular season, 46 fourth-quarter comebacks, 58 game-winning drives, and in the postseason, 9 fourth-quarter comebacks, 14 game-winning drives.
Yeah. I mean, that's the type of stuff where you just sit there and say, like, what do you want us to do? There's nothing that this guy, couldn't do. And you go back and we're gonna talk about this week in sports history. Kind of will all be about the Super Bowls because they were all around this time. Today's February 1st, and so 2 of them happened on February 1st. 2 of them happened on February 3rd, and all of them kind of happen around this week. Matter of fact, for a while, until 2006, until February of 2006, the Patriots were the only team to have ever won a Super Bowl in February. Because they didn't push it back permanently to February until 2003. So they won in 01. 02 was not in February, and the next 2 were in February. And so they had won all 3 Super Bowls in February at that point. So it's incredible.
And at this rate, it's going to end up being in March in a couple of years. So
I know, right? So
yeah, it's
and that Super Bowl 38, we'll talk about Super Bowl 38 because that Super Bowl 38 was outrageous. That game was stupid.
Yeah, before we do that, I had asked this question to somebody earlier, and I think we should talk about it here.
Yeah.
Favorite Tom Brady non-Super Bowl games?
Oh, my God, dude.
Because I have my pick. I tweeted it out earlier, and that's a little bit controversial, but I want to go with it.
All right.
2015 AFC Championship game in Denver. It's a game they lost.
So good that game. Oh, my God.
But they were
so good that game.
That Pats team absolutely, they got so hurt in the middle of the season. They had nothing left. They were the worst team by quite a bit on the road against the eventual Super Bowl champions with one of the best pass rushes I've ever seen. They gave away the snap count the whole game. And they were 1 play away from tying it up because Tom Brady and Gronk just willed them there.
Incredible.
Got hit 18 times. one of the gutsiest quarterback performances I've ever seen. He was single-handedly the reason they were able to make that happen. Well, not single-handedly, because Gronk did quite a bit in there
Of
as
course,
well.
yeah.
That was just the two of them. And man, the way they were, I don't think they would have beat the Panthers in the Super Bowl if they got through that. They were just so hurt.
Yeah.
But you never know.
Never know.
And in some ways, losing that game, I feel like helps Brady's legacy, just the toughness factor. Because he gets, especially after 2011 and the pictures of him and the long hair in 2010, he became, in 2007, he became kind of this pretty boy QB. And that was not that at all. That was, he sat in there and took hit after hit after hit after hit after hit. And
he was just battered and broken and still almost did it. So, and if Steve Gostowski doesn't miss an extra point in that game, they tie the game in that moment, you know, and then go to overtime, and you never know. So,
and that was that broke his streak of extra points too.
Yeah.
And that's one of those. You know, it's funny too, because for as good of a kicker as Gostkowski is, he's had some of his misses on just the worst possible places to have them. It's like the opposite. Vinatieri is actually not that great of a kicker, historically speaking, in terms of just pure accuracy or distance, but he's made so many historically significant and tough kicks.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you look at it and say Justin Tucker is probably the best kicker I've ever seen, but how could you ever? But how could you ever pick against? How could you ever pick against Vinatieri in one? You know what I mean?
Justin Tucker is literally the only kicker I would ever take over Adam Vinatieri for a single kick with the game on the line.
Right.
And if it's in the snow, I'm taking Vinatieri.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing, you know. So it's like it's just crazy to think about, you know, how good Vinatieri. I mean, look, Manning had never won anything before Vinatieri, and then they won 15-12. in one of the playoff games that year in 2006 to win the Super Bowl. So, but either way, you know, I think it's a great question. Someone mentioned the 2019 AFC Championship game or 2018. I have a hard time with that.
I love that game.
That game was incredible. Brady was unreal in that game. You know, the 3 3rd and 10s in the fourth in overtime was incredible. And, you know, of course, driving down to take the lead. And then, of course, the Chiefs had the game and so on and so forth. That was fantastic. The 2006 Ravens AFC Championship game, AFC divisional game in 2006 was a great game. He has so many of them. I think I go way back to what was it? 2003? What the heck? What?
There's a lot of good. There's a lot of good mentions in the chat. 2012 49ers. That's one of the other great Brady losses. Performances in a loss that he has out there for non-Super Bowls. The Super Bowl against the Eagles is up there, breaking the record.
AFC Championship game in 2017. That's a great one too.
Yep.
And
Gronk getting out of that game.
Was it the Was it the 2003 playoffs where they played the Steelers in the second round?
That was 2004 AFC Championship, and he had a fever.
No, I was thinking about the game. The hell game was it? Where who the hell was the safety that was talking crap? And
you're thinking of the 2007 game against the Steelers. Anthony Brown who was talking?
And they just threw
Anthony Smith.
I thought it was Deion Branch, though. I thought it was Deion Branch where he was just throwing bombs over his head.
I think you are confusing Deion Branch catching 2 long passes in the 2004 AFC Championship with Brady going right at Anthony Smith in the 2007 regular season game.
Maybe you're right, but I feel like in that 2004 playoffs that someone had talked crap about the Patriots leading up to that game. And it
was the Steelers, so I feel like that's almost a guarantee anyway.
Yeah.
That was a very cocky group.
Yeah. That was they absolutely curb stomped the Steelers in that game.
Yeah. I just rewatched the highlights of that, and James Ferrier was the linebacker for the Steelers. He's mic'd up for that game, and listening to him throughout the game is just hilarious. That's the one where you got Deion Branch turned into the crowd and go, "Where's your towels? Where's your towels?" at the end of the game.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, so that's like, and then the other one for me is the 2009 regular season game against the Titans, where he threw 5 touchdown passes in the first half and was just absolutely lighting people up. That was so much fun in the red uniforms in the snow. That was
All-time
awesome.
game.
Yep.
I think you could also, on a similar note with 09, you could go with the season opener against the Bills, where they're down
Incredible.
late and they score 2 quick touchdowns. And
Yep.
that throw, I think, was to Ben Watson for the game-winning touchdown. And that one was that was a laser, because it was a tight end running the seam and they had it covered. And Brady throws a laser back shoulder, and Watson goes up and makes the twisting catch, and it's just amazing stuff. That was the Brady's back moment.
Yeah, that was right. That was his first. Well, not his first. Yeah, it was his first game back.
That was his first game back. Yeah, it was the Monday night opener.
Yeah. Man, that was such an awesome game. And I believe, and Darpago pointed out, I believe it was 5 touchdowns in a single quarter.
It was.
The second quarter. It was 45 to nothing at the half.
Yeah.
But it was just like they just absolutely murdered them.
Yeah, I think we should throw in, was it the 2011 season opener or the 2010 week 2 or something? The game where he went down to Miami and threw for 500 yards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that was the one where Welker.
The 99-yard touchdown pass to Welker, yeah.
I've never, that might be the most perfectly placed run after the catch throw I've ever seen.
Yep. Just unbelievable. And that's the type of stuff for me that, like, he was so good at doing that stuff. And, you know, that 2011 team, man, that 2011 team had no business being in the Super Bowl. No business. And they made it all the way there. And
shouts to Sterling Moore.
I know. And if Welker catches that pass, they win the game. You know, like, and I will say,
or if Gronk doesn't have a high ankle sprain, they win that game.
Right, easily. And you know what I will say, though, and I've always said this, the play before that play, they ran, I think they ran just a power right off the left side. And he what's it called? Logan Mankins just whiffed on his block. And Ben Jarvis Greenell's got tackle for a 1-yard loss. There was a massive hole in that play. If Ben Jarvis picks up 4 or 5 yards, they're running the ball in the next play, not even throwing it. And so, so you just never know, you know, and that's one of those things where, you know, you just sit there and you say, like, man, we have Tom Brady and you don't. And you know what I mean? And so, and it's crazy, but it's funny how those little things make such a difference, you know?
And I think the whole, we have Tom Brady and you don't, in some ways, nothing exemplifies that more than the 2017 AFC Championship against the Jaguars.
Yes.
Because the Jaguars were the better team that day, for most of that day. And that Patriots offense, now without Gronk, Brady's hurt. The Jaguars should have won that game. They came into Foxborough and beat up the Patriots for quite a bit. And they were so scared of Tom Brady that they changed all of their decision-making down the stretch. That's the whole reason they were able to get back in it. They were so scared of him that they let him win. And the reason the Eagles ended up winning the Super Bowl is because they weren't afraid of him and they were aggressive and they did push the envelope. But the Jaguars they couldn't do it. And that's, I think we should also throw in here too, we're talking about the games, like the drive against the Texans that year with Brendan Cooks at the end, Temporal Tompkins play, the Browns game, the Broncos come back, all that in 2013.
Yeah. I mean, some of those plays were, you know, so like I wasn't there for the 09 Bills game. I went to class because I was doing night school at that point. I had to go to class, and I did, because if I missed 2 classes, I would have failed. So I was like, I have to go. So I did. Luckily, I did, because I got deathly ill, like 4 weeks later or something like that, and had to miss. And I was like, oh my God, dude, if I would have failed the class. And then that 2013 game, I was at a wedding that day. And I remember, I feel like I've told the story on the podcast before, but I was at a wedding and someone's dad drove his minivan to the back of the venue, and we were outside listening to the game on the radio.
I love that. Which game was this?
This was the Saints game in 2013.
Okay.
And we were just going nuts so I heard the, you know, show ponies, where's the beef, like all this stuff, like in real time. It was awesome. And so we were flipping out in the back. It was great. So, but those are the moments that you just, like, you can't, you know, they had that year, they had the Broncos game, which they came back down from.
24-0.
They had the Browns game where they had to recover the onside kick,
down 12 with 2 and change.
It's like insanity that they won that game. They had some crazy games in 2013 that they, you know, they came back. So
Yeah.
It's crazy. And Hitchhiker's Pies mentioned the 0-2 Bears come back when they were down
That's
27-6, and
was
they
that
came. I
David
mean,
Patton
the
who caught
David
the
Patton
pass for the
catching
touch?
just
Rest
an
in peace.
outrageous throw and catch, and so it's like you have all these memories from 20 plus years, and of course, the Bucks fans will have their Bucks memories as well, but like, the amount, and not just that. I think the biggest thing for me was that we were just so good. Like we were so good every single year that we were like the regular season doesn't even matter. Like, and
No.
that's why it's funny because some of these regular season games get lost in the shuffle because it was like, no, it doesn't matter. We're going to make the playoffs. We're going to be in the playoffs every single year. We're probably going to be in the AFC Championship game every single year. And then we're probably going to be in the Super Bowl every single year. And so it's like, it started to become, that 10-year drought. Oh, a massive 10-year drought from 04 to 2014. It's like, dude, we played in 2 Super Bowls in that time
And had
and
a
made
couple first round buys.
right. And not only that, but made the AFC Championship game in what? 06, 07, 11, and 12. And 13. We made
Yeah.
the AFC Championship game in like six of those years. And it was like, oh, those are the down years. And it's like, what are you talking about? Like that's like the best some franchises have ever done. That's better than some franchises have ever done,
Yeah. I want to talk about this for a sec from like the younger generation of Pats fans perspective. Because I was like, so I'll pull this up. I collect the Patriots Super Bowl DVDs, and I've just kind of had these going in the background while I've been at work today. So this is the collection.
It's incredible.
I have all of them, but one I realized, one of the 3 games, the Glories, I realized I never bought. So I ordered that today. That'll be here tomorrow. But the first chunk of this, the first 3, I was 3, 5, and 6 years old when they won these Super Bowls. I experienced those teams and that Tom Brady through the DVDs primarily. I would just watch these. And to me, Tom Brady he wasn't a quarterback. He wasn't an athlete. He was this mythic movie character almost who always comes out on top at the end of the day. And I just remember growing up and it was like he was that guy. Then 07, they lose. 08, he gets hurt. 09, they lose in the first round. 2010, they lose in the first round. And it was just, he goes from this superhero to very mortal very quickly. And the way in 2014, after the Chiefs game, things turned around. I mean, we forget the context of the 2014 Chiefs game. The context of that was, hey, well, they'd been back, they'd been successful, they couldn't break through. Now he looks awful to start the season. The whole Cliff conversation looks crazy now, but was not entirely unwarranted at the time, given where they were in the history. And it was like, wow, is this really where the window ends? Is this really how it's going to be? Right. And the way they turned it on and got another whole dynasty out of that, for my generation of fans, it was almost a fulfilling of all of the things we had heard about growing up. Now we got to actually watch it again. We got to see all the crazy comebacks and the wild endings.
It was incredible. And look, I mean, that season in April of that year of 2014, right? Bill Belichick takes the podium and says, "We all know the age and contract situation of the current quarterback." Like, what? That's what he said. And that's the stuff where you just look at it and say, it's crazy. And you almost say the mental toughness of that team to come back from a butt whooping like that. And Belichick's talked about this many times about how he knew during that Chiefs game that he had
third and fourth quarters.
That he had a team because they didn't quit, they fought hard, and and they were still going. And that's exactly what you need out of that team. And Brady comes back and they absolutely shellacked Cincinnati the next week. And Cincinnati came in undefeated, and they were big bad, this and that, and they just absolutely dismantled them. Brady got a huge standing ovation when he came out, unlike Mac Jones, who got booed when he came out. Brady gets a massive standing ovation when he comes out, and they just light up the Bengals. And it just and it was that moment, Gronk's after the game, like, please, like, that's our quarterback. You know what I mean? And Belichick, laughing at the reporters saying, like, do you think there's a quarterback change coming? Whatever. That's the stuff where, things were tumultuous for a little bit, but everyone knew exactly where everyone stood, and they were good, and that team was nasty. And
it took them only one game to right the ship there, which is crazy.
Yeah.
Another Brady memory I kind of want to share that I really liked. I went to college. My one of my best friends, my college roommate, all 4 years. He didn't really grow up a sports fan. And actually, the second question I ever asked him was, "Are you a Patriots fan?" After "What's your name?" basically. But yeah, and he wanted to get into sports, so we would watch the Patriots games together. And we watched the 2016 season, but he was into it. He wasn't fully into it at that point. He was excited they won, whatever. 2017, we started to get into a little bit more, and that's where that Texans game happened. The Brandon Cooks pass early on, and he had heard like, "Oh, never count out touchdown Tom. Like Brady can always have the comeback." But the look on his face when Brady pulled off that drive is something I'll never forget, because I got to watch somebody else experience the kind of the myths that I had grown up with, and to see the legend of Tom Brady work,
Yeah.
and to kind of witness, like, it's almost a religious experience at times to watch what he would do at the end of games. You think it's over, and he just pulls it out of nowhere, and that continued up
Yeah.
until the end of this season too.
Well, what's crazy is that people talk about Larry Bird like that, right? How Bird just every single time the game was on the line and you needed a shot, he'd hit it, and he became this mythical being, right?
Yeah,
And Bird, plays 10 years and 12 years in the NBA because his back gave out on him, and he's one of the best players ever. And Brady does the opposite. He owns, and Hitchhiker's Pie is doing a great job of just like spamming the chat with all these records because he owns all of them. Like he has the most 10 to 10 plus point comebacks in NFL history. He's got, all these things. I mean, this one's my favorite. 14 conference championship games. Montana's second with seven conference games. So you want to talk about, no, I'm sorry. Brady's made 14 of them and was 10-4 in those 14. That's pretty damn good.
Yeah. My favorite stat is that he has 13,400 passing yards in just the playoffs.
That's the stuff where you sit there and you just say, how in the world? How
He's
in the world?
35 and 13. 35 and 13 as a starter in the playoffs.
Yeah.
That's what's absolutely insane, is like, it's just, he had that gear he could and that's, I think, the defining part of Brady. It isn't like, we all know his peak with Moss in 07 and all the crazy stuff they did in 2010 as the unanimous MVP. But what really set Brady apart was that even when the team wasn't very good, as long as you could keep the game close, if you needed one drive to win the game, didn't matter who was around him, you were always confident he was going to be able to get it done.
100%.
Because of his ability to know what a defense was going to do, ability to get the players where they need to be, adjust on the fly. And that's something, I mean, you saw it in the first Super Bowl he played in against the Rams, leading that drive. And you saw that at the end of this season. I'm forgetting which game it was, but I was at the one against the Saints near the end of the season at home, where they were down late, and he just led a couple drives
all game, and he just
And they go, and the second they go no huddle, he knows exactly what he's doing. He knows where everybody is. The ball's coming out. It's on time. It's getting everywhere. And then the next thing you know, you won.
Right.
And that's what that 2013 team was. That's what the 06 team was, for the most part. And I feel like how good he was in those years is just as telling about who he was than what he did in the playoffs.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really incredible. It's really incredible. And you look at all the metrics. Look at any of the metrics you want. I don't care what metrics it is. It's not close. It's not close. He's the greatest player in NFL history, and it's not close. And anyone that wants to argue anything other than that is either a Patriots hater, or someone who's just frankly just uninformed. I mean, there is no debate. There is no debate, and that's really what it comes down to. And look, I know Manning had success against Brady, and towards the end of his career, certainly in the playoffs, it was the home team that would win consistently. I get that. As a matter of fact, I don't think either of them ever won on the road against the other one in the playoffs.
They didn't.
But it doesn't matter. And people talk about, it's the defense, and he had this great deep. I mean, I'm sorry, man. Like, some of these games, his defense sucked, and he came through anyways. And some of these games, his defense was okay, but then you get to the end of the game, and if you can keep it close, then they win. And that's really what it comes down to. He was incredible.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of the important thing, that what you said, it embodies what I was saying. Like, it's just, the team around him was fantastic for lots of this, and that helps. That inflates his winning numbers over other things, over where
Right.
he would have been elsewhere. Sure, and that's okay. It doesn't diminish who he is, because who he is if games are a coin flip, if they're close, we'll say. I know there's a lot of statisticians that kind of say, all right, for games that
Right.
are within a possession, it can go either way. His ability to blow on the coin while it's in the air in just the right way, that it always lands on heads, was unparalleled. And you listen to him and you just watch the team, and it's clear it isn't like he just happened to get really lucky time and time again. It was preparation. It was knowing what was going on. It was being in the right place. It was poise, and it was comfort in those moments. And it goes back to his time at Michigan too. We talk about the Ravens game and coming back from 14 down 14 twice. He did that in college, in his last college game ever.
Right.
The Orange Bowl against Alabama, down 14-0, they come back. Down 28-14, they come back and end up winning it in overtime because Alabama missed an extra point. And
and by the way, that's one of the most underrated throws in Brady's career. Everyone talks about the double pass, obviously, in that Ravens game, but that throw to LaFell
one
was outrageous to win
in
the
a
game.
bucket. In a bucket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
yep.
Also, my dad, Hitchhiker's Pie is just coming out flying with these. There's so many of them, right? Record is best versus the spread. His WAR is ahead by over 10% than the next closest, which is insane. My dad threw one out as well. Playoff wins in NFL history. The Patriots have 37. They're first with 37 playoff wins. The Steelers are second with 36 playoff wins. And Tom Brady is third with 35 playoff wins. And it's just like it's complete insanity when you really stop to think about what he's been able to do over the course of his career. And again, played a long time. That's true. He's absolutely played a long time. But you look at it and just say he's just done it so many times that you just at a certain point you just say, well, what do you want me to say? Like he's clearly the best.
And the longevity too, like he's mastered that skill to the degree that one can. The amount of time he took in preparing his body to absorb all of those hits and be ready for those moments. Like he was preparing himself for those situations and to play this long. It wasn't an accident. And other guys like Peyton Manning didn't do anything wrong to end his career when he did. He's one of the greatest to ever do it. Brady went to a level that most have never gone to in the preparation to get his body ready. And that's why I don't think it's a shock that he played as long as he did. He always felt he could. He just, and I think that's what set him apart the whole time, was his work ethic, his ability to prepare and just be in the right spot at the right time and time again.
Yeah. I agree. They did add, Hitchhiker's Pie added that is since 1966. I believe I was looking at it from the merger. But either way.
Yeah. And then Dark Blue Gold. Yeah, you got that one.
And then Dark Blue Gold. Yeah, that's a great one, right? Tom Brady has more Super Bowls than any single franchise in NFL history. And it's just, that's the stuff, right? That's the stuff for me that, you just, so.
Yep. Wins are not necessarily a QB stat, but they can be.
Right.
Depending on the quarterback and the situation, and Brady's an example of that.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? Is that ultimately some games did he suck in some games and they won anyways? Of course that happened. But the vast majority of those games, he was a huge reason that they won. And sometimes it's just the mental side of it, of saying we have Tom Brady and we can beat any team if we have Tom Brady.
That was the craziest thing, was watching like everybody else freak out trying to stop him, watching other fans. He victimized every fan base in the NFL by beating them in a way they shouldn't. At some point, pulling something crazy out to the point where people had to make up conspiracies about him just to cope with the fact that he was beating them all the time.
Right. I mean, take a look at Super Bowl 51, right? When they're down 28-3 and they're going for it on fourth down, and Matt Ryan's pacing the sideline. He goes, "The big play, right?" Because he knows in the back of his head, it's Tom freaking Brady over there. Like, it just,
and it's
never
and what I always remember, Super Bowl 38, which we're going to talk about here in a second. We got to wrap up. But the Moose and Muhammad, Moose Muhammad and Steve Smith on the sidelines during the game talking about basically there's no giving up. It doesn't matter how many points we scored. We're the quarterback on the other side. We got to keep it going. And then you go to Super Bowl 51 with Mohamed Sanu mic'd up talking to Julio Jones, I think it was, saying almost the exact same thing. Same building, Super Bowls 13 years apart. and it's the receivers on the other side talking about how they know you have to keep scoring.
Yeah.
You have to keep doing it because
Yeah,
otherwise he's going to catch you.
it's incredible. And that one to me is one of the most underrated Super Bowls of all time. Super Bowl 38.
I agree.
You end up beating the Panthers 32-29. 0 points in the first quarter, 0 points in the third quarter, 24 points total in the second quarter, and then 37 points scored in the fourth quarter. I mean, it's just like
and you talk about the second quarter. I believe all of those were scored in the last 4 minutes of the second.
They
quarter.
were. Yep, they were.
Yeah.
The Patriots scored with 3:05 left, and then the Panthers drove right down. When the Patriots drove right down, the Patriots scored with 18 seconds left, and I believe Vinatieri kicked the ensuing kickoff out of bounds. Did he not?
No, it was a squib kick that they returned for like 10
That's
yards, and then the Panthers just ran a play and happened to they had like an accidental 20-yard run in there because got broke a couple tackles. Was that Steven Davis? Yep. I believe on that team. I don't know if he was the guy carrying it, but he was the guy.
Either him or Foster. Yeah.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, they're in field goal range. Now you're mixing up with John Casey kicking the kickoff out of bounds at the end of the game.
That's what it was. Yeah. Yes, because Ricky Prohl scored with like a minute left.
Ricky Prohl twice scored with under 2 minutes left to tie a Super Bowl against Tom Brady and lost both of them.
That's unbelievable.
It was so bad for him.
Yeah, I know. I don't feel that bad for him, but it's pretty crazy when you start to look at things like that. And that's really.
He missed 2 kicks in that game.
He did.
Missed one and one blocked.
Well, and you have.
That was the first kick he ever missed indoors.
It's crazy to think about. That's crazy to think about when you start talking about those things.
And that they were snake bitten in that stadium too. The last time they had trailed in a game in Super Bowl 38, the last time they had trailed was when they played the Texans down there back in November. And that was a Texans team that was in its second season and was awful. Pats outgained them by some crazy amount, and it took a fourth quarter touchdown to tie it, send it to overtime to Daniel Graham, and then they took an interception and a field goal in overtime to win it.
Yeah. So Hitchhiker's Pie is talking about the SI article. I believe the Patriots long snapper that year. I believe that Ronnie Paxton got hurt that year, right? And so they brought in Kinchin, and then he was like,
another long snapper got hurt. I remember this whole thing. They had to bring in a long snapper. I believe it was for the AFC Championship game that year. Could have been for the divisional round or maybe the last regular season game. It was late.
Right.
He was at that point a school teacher. He had retired and become a school teacher. He got called out to go be for the Patriots for this, and then he couldn't get anything. He was really struggling in practice. And almost he thought about quitting and then didn't. And in the week of the Super Bowl, at dinner a couple nights before the game, he cut his hand open.
That's what it was.
Trying to butter a roll or cut a roll open or whatever, just slice right into it with a knife. So that the snap you see for Super Bowl 38 is from that guy. And that's maybe we can tweet out that article or something, where that's one of my favorite articles of all time. That whole story is fantastic.
Yep.
Yes, it is the Brian Kinchin story again, Team Crazy Matt.
So, and that's where you start to look at and just think like there are some crazy things that happened. I mean, in 2001, they had, there had to be 47 things to go right for them to make the playoffs and get the number 2 seed. And all 47 of those things went right, including David Patton getting knocked out cold, unconscious on the sideline of the Bills and fumbling the ball. But because his head was out of bounds and the ball was touching his leg, the ball was out of bounds. So the Patriots get the ball. I mean, just every single thing that needed to happen in that season happened. And you have to have some luck. You do. You have to have some luck to win all those.
You don't win without
it. To. But to say it was luck is just complete insanity. There was some luck involved, just like there is in every Super Bowl championship and in every playoff win, and really in every win period, right? But to say that it was all luck is foolish.
No, that's where the whole Patriot way thing comes from.
Yep.
Be so prepared that the luck is always on your side because you're in the right place and you make less mistakes than the other team.
Exactly.
And you never make the costly ones. We've seen it with the Patriots this year. You can win a lot of games in the NFL just by not messing up.
Yep. Very true.
The Patriots don't mess up. They're probably a 10-11 win team this year.
Yeah, for sure.
Like with just some of the dumb stuff they did. So.
Yep. Agreed. So. Anyways, all right, that's it. We're not even doing this week in sports history. We don't have to. This has all been nostalgia.
What's
this
the
is
what
the
was the other
Patriots
Super
Super Bowl
Bowl?
week.
It was on the first. Did we talk about both that were on February 1st?
So the first was, I
Oh,
think, the
49 we didn't talk about, right?
49 we didn't really talk about, but 49, let me tell you something. 49 is one of the most, and what doesn't happen is that Brady doesn't get credit for the level of defense that he was going against in 2014. I need you to understand out there, everyone that's listening, what you need to understand is that defense was on its way to being the greatest defense in the history of the NFL. Not only were they the number one defense back-to-back seasons, but they had absolutely obliterated Peyton Manning in one Super
Yeah.
Bowl.
People
And they
thought
had
that, yeah.
they had at that point had held the Patriots to 14 points in the next Super Bowl. So you beat Tom Brady
Gotten two picks off Brady in that too.
right. You beat Tom Brady and Peyton Manning in back-to-back seasons, and you're the number one defense, and you win back-to-back Super Bowls. You're the best defense in the history of the NFL. And not only did Tom Brady make them not the best defense in the history of the NFL, he completely broke that franchise. And of course, Malcolm Butler had a lot to do with that and all that other stuff. But Brady leading those two drives and that third down play, that's one of my favorite Patriots plays of all time. That
Edelman.
third down
it's
play
amazing.
to Edelman was incredible. Just absolutely incredible.
Yeah, the way he stepped up in the pocket there was something else to get that where it needed to be. And that whole, I've watched those drives so many times, those last couple drives, and how they put things together and the way they attacked that defense. And games like that, I mean, that right there is why you can't play zone against Tom Brady.
Yeah.
You just can't do it. And then they broke it so much, you force them into the one play where they play man defense, and that's the one where you get Gronk across the middle for that huge play on 2nd and 11.
Yep.
And that's right there is what Brady did. He would find out what you liked to do, find out how to beat it, break that and force you to do something you weren't comfortable with, and then break you with that because you weren't comfortable with it and because he could tell that you were going to be doing it. And
Yep. By the way, poetic over here, stepping up in the pocket like a phoenix rising through the ashes. Love it.
In Arizona. Did you know this year is going to be the first Super Bowl played in Arizona without the Patriots in it since '96?
It's so stupid. That's the stuff. Like that's the stuff where you're like, come on. Like they've just been so good ever. Yeah. And
I also believe
so good
that the game that it could be the one this year that the Bucs played at Arizona this year. I think that's the first time and the only time Brady ever played in that stadium in the regular season.
I think you're right because in 2014, 2016 he was suspended, right?
Yeah.
And then I don't think it was open in 2008.
I think it was in 08.
Oh, 08 he wasn't. 08 he was hurt. He was hurt.
But even then in 08, they played in New England for some reason. I don't remember how it got messed around, but they played in Arizona in 04, New England in 08, in New England 2012, and then Arizona in 2016.
Got it.
And then back in New England in 2020.
Yeah.
And by that time he's in Tampa. So yeah, he played more Super Bowls in that stadium than he did regular season games.
It's crazy. That's the stuff.
Unless he played, somebody can correct me if he played some other one. If he played a couple there with Tampa, but I think he just played the one.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of those crazy things. And there is a good This Week in Sports History. I'm not going to play the sounder, but maybe I should, but I'm not going to. Janet Jackson changed the FCC rules. Where that had to be a 10-second delay.
Who was that? Was that with Justin Timberlake?
Justin Timberlake. Yeah.
Which I feel like I thought that was like 90% on Justin Timberlake.
It certainly might have been, but I feel like it may not have been a true wardrobe malfunction.
I have no idea. All I can tell you is that all of the Super Bowl DVDs I have, they always include a copy of the halftime show, except for that one.
Yeah. Well, that's. I was in college. I was at a college party, and we.
Boy.
I mean, obviously at a.
We already know what the reaction to that is going to be.
And people were like, "Was that? Did we just see a boob?" And I'm like, "What?" I was in the back. I'm like, it's the halftime. I don't care about this. I want to watch the game, right?
Yeah.
And so I went to the party because it was halftime, and I'm like, oh, I'll go say hello to everyone. I'm in my room watching the game by myself. Like, I'm not watching these idiots, And I was like, I don't think so. Like, there's no way, you know? And so, of course, we didn't have TiVo or DVR or anything back then, so you couldn't rewind it. And they were like, I know for sure that we did. And of course, you know, you find out the next day that you in fact did. But you know, that was, it was crazy. So anyways, that changed. That FCC,
Changed a lot.
you know, 10-second delay on all live TV from that point on. So
Yeah, that was something.
But anyways, I think that's it. We've covered quite a bit. Listen,
we could do
Brady,
a 2.5-hour long podcast on Tom Brady and miss stuff.
Week. We could do a week. We could do an hour show every single day for the rest of the year and still not cover everything.
We could do, how many seasons did he actually end up playing?
Yeah, 23. Yeah.
We could do a 23 episode series and do an episode on every season, and we would still miss stuff.
It's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. Yeah, we could. So, anyways, you know,
Greatest
Tom Brady's
to ever do
the GOAT, 100%, greatest of all time. Well, 23. You're right. He played 21 seasons. Because you don't count 2000 and 2008, but he was in the NFL for 23 seasons. So,
the 2008 injury was traumatic for childhood Matt.
Yeah. How about yeah. I was a grown man at that. Well, not really. I mean, I was, you know, whatever, just out of college in my mid 20s. Terrifying for me too.
We'll do it. We'll end this with a little trivia for you.
Yes, let's hear it.
Do you know who caught the first and last touchdowns for Tom Brady in New England?
First and last touchdowns for New England. Okay, you talking about Patriots players, right? No, we're not counting Logan Ryan here.
Yeah, no. We're talking about yeah.
All right. First, I believe was Rod Rutledge.
Nope.
Or was that his first catch? I mean, maybe his first completion
that was his
went
first
to Rod
catch. His first touchdown.
Okay. Was it Terry Glenn? Does Hitchhiker's Pie have it right? Terry Glenn?
It was Terry Glenn.
Terry Glenn. Oh my goodness. Was the last it couldn't have been Nikhil. The last is probably someone absolutely ridiculous. Well, obviously it was 2019.
I thought it was, and I turned out I actually had this wrong. I misremembered who the last one was, but
really,
yeah.
It
isn't somebody crazy?
Was it James White?
It was James White, but I had it misremembered because he also threw one to a Landon Roberts, and I thought that was his last one.
That was the second to last, right? Yeah, that would have been so cool if that was his last one to a Landon Roberts.
Terry Glenn and all, yeah. James White, though, in New England is fitting. Who was his last one, too, this year?
Probably Mike Evans, if I had to guess. I mean, who knows, but probably Mike Evans.
Let me, it would have been whatever that last, I think it was it was Kyle Rudolph? No, Cameron Brate.
Cameron Brate and
Terry Glenn. That's one heck of a way to bookend your career.
I guess, yeah. Ugh. Oh, no, that was in the playoffs, though. Kyle Rudolph in the regular season says Team Crazy Matt. I believe him.
Yeah.
So, and
here, should we answer that question?
Yes, let's do
it. Do you think Brady will come back again? We said this at the top, but absolutely not. Not based on his tone in his announcement and anything. I think he's done.
Yeah.
He's done everything he needs to. And it's the only person I think right now who could conceivably beat him in this discussion would be Patrick Mahomes, and it's going to take another 15 years of him doing what he's done and continuing it at this pace to get into that.
Well, and that's the thing. I mean, even if Mahomes were to win this year, even if he were to win in 2 weeks, he would have 2 and Brady has 7. And so that's, you know, it's just like, come on. Like, it's not, it's still not close. And he's been to 5 straight ACC. That's nice. That's nice. Brady went to 14. So talk to me in 9 years when he's played in 14. Like, it just, that's the stuff for me. And there are definitely Peyton truthers out there. 100%. There are, but it's not even close.
Super Bowl 51 cemented that Brady was the best quarterback to ever do. So 49 made it the predominant opinion. 51 cemented it, and 53 got rid of all the doubters.
Correct. Yeah, and then he won another one after that. So
yeah.
So it's just, you know.
Then he went somewhere else and did it.
Right, and you know, Hitchhiker's Pie is mentioning that, you know, Brady in his 40s is better than Mahomes' prime, and I don't know about that, but I will say, Brady did put. I mean, if you split his career into 3 sections, you could argue that he has he has had 3 Hall of Fame careers. He has 100% had 2 Hall of Fame careers, and I would even argue that he has 3 Hall of Fame careers. And it's something that has just never been done by anyone ever. And I'm sorry, but won't be ever done by anyone ever. It's just outrageous.
No. It's the safe bet that it won't. If it happens, then if somebody else ever gets the title of greatest of all time over Brady, they will have had to do some crazy stuff to earn it. And if they do that stuff, then
yeah. And so he did say the PFF WAR has Brady's 40s over Mahomes' prime. And listen, I'm not saying that that's not true, but I think at this point in his career, I would choose Mahomes. But yes, you're taking all of his 40s, and we will have to break out. Team Crazy Matt does run a few Sporkle quizzes for Brady, so you got to jump on the old Sporkle and hit up that those Brady TD receivers. So
might have a wild Friday night this week, and
there you go. See
some Sporkle quizzes.
That's it. I love it. So
yeah. All
right, everyone. Yeah, well, thank you. Thank you for listening. We appreciate it. Obviously the GOAT is gone, retired. Not gone, but he's gone for the game of football. And we'll go from there. So listen, at this point, I think we can appreciate the greatness of Tom Brady. I know there's some scars from him leaving a few years back. I get it. Greatest of all time, not even close. And just be happy for all the times that we have. And unfortunately, we're spoiled because of it. but it doesn't matter. We'll take it anyways. So, but that's what we got. So thanks for listening, guys. We appreciate it. And we'll be back next week. We will be back next week. And, with more, I'm sure we'll be talking more. We'll be doing more prospects next week. Senior Bowl,
and this is
Shrine Bowl.
Yeah, and we're doing this on Wednesday night. So if you're listening to this on Thursday, Shrine Bowl is tonight, I believe, 8:30 Eastern on NFL Network.
Yes.
Some interesting guys in there. The Patriots are coaching it. So.
Yep, we talked about those guys already.
Go to our last episode. We broke down some prospects for it.
Yep. So give that a listen, and those guys will be on there. And of course, we'll be back talking about the Senior Bowl next week as well. And so we'll go from there.
A little Super Bowl preview too.
Oh yeah. Oh, God, I hope that game doesn't even happen. But nevertheless,
go Eagles, go Birds.
Yeah. Yes. At this point, and that's scary to even think that I had to say something like that. But you're right. You're right. So, all right, guys, have a great night, and we'll talk to you soon.